Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is my June wrap up. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I am going to be doing some diamond painting, I guess you'd call it, while I talk about the books that I read in June. The reason I'm doing this is because today is the general election day and I have to be honest, I am really quite stressed and I need something to relax me. So what I've got is a diamond art thing and I would really like to try it. I've never done this before and to be honest I'm not sure I like it because I know I've not started. I think it's just a lot of waste. Like there's a lot of plastic beading here which are meant to be diamonds. I thought I'd give this hobby a go because maybe it's good for my mental health. I'm not going to talk too much about the general election, no one is here for that. So yeah, just know I am very stressed. I have voted. I don't know how things are going to turn out. So let's do some diamond stuff and talk about the books that I read in June, because June was a really successful reading month for me. I did a lot, which I will tell you about shortly. Let me just read the instructions on how to actually do this because I have no idea. I wasn't expecting these beads to be so small. Okay, now that I figured this out, let's talk about the books that I read in June. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books, I think, in June, and I had an all right time. It was just massively all right. Let me start with a couple of hyped books. Actually, I was kind of expecting to love. How do you pick this up? I've got like no coordination, so this is going to go interestingly. I read the first 2 books in the Housemaid series. I think that's what it's called. So this is a Kindle Unlimited series that has become very popular thanks to TikTok, and my workbook club chose it for the second book that we were going to read with them. The first one being the Song of Achilles, so 2 very different vibes. I kind of knew what this was going into it, but I didn't really know the premise because I don't read the synopses for any thrillers, as you all know, just because of spoilers. So I knew that this was about a woman called, I think, Millie, who goes to work for a family as a housemaid and then something terrible happens, as it does in thrillers. The first one is about her going to work for the Winchester family, and the wife, Mrs. Winchester, acts very, very weird. Nothing seems to add up. She seems to tell stories, gets Millie in trouble, and it's not very clear why. And then halfway through you have the typical thriller twist. Everything is kind of not what it seems. I did see the twist coming. Like I knew something would happen. I didn't know the exact details of the twist, so it wasn't like entirely predictable until one moment where someone says something, and because I'm expecting a twist, I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna happen, because one of the characters made a comment. I did find this very thrilling. I found it very unrealistic, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't hate it by any means. I think I gave this one 4 stars because I read it in one sitting. It's very good for a thriller book, but it's not like award winning or anything. If you've read tons of thrillers before and you want something unique, don't go for this. But if you just want something to, like, if you can't sleep like I can and you want something to help you either fall asleep or something that you just want to read in one sitting and feel like you've accomplished something at 2 o'clock in the morning because you're not doing anything else, then I would highly recommend it. The sequel, however, which I then started right away because I was quite impressed by The Housemaid, the sequel was rubbish. It was basically a recycled version of book 1. Because I started it so soon after the first one, I was making comparisons the entire time. How hard do you have to press down on these? Yeah, so I was making comparisons the entire time, so I didn't really enjoy that part at all. The plot for this one was just a bit meh, and didn't like any of the side characters. Like there was another woman who was apparently in trouble in this one, but of course there was going to be a twist, but I didn't like any of the side characters at all. And then there's a character who's in the Housemaid, then disappears for a bit, and then it turns out that Millie was kind of seeing them in between books until they went away. Like this never came up before. Like I wasn't getting those vibes from them and Millie, so I don't really understand why the author decided to do that. And they had this entire thing in between books and an entire history there. Like I feel like I missed something because the author would explain that what they'd been up to in between and all of these incidents and things, and they had a falling out, and then why this person wasn't there. It just felt really unnecessary and I didn't like this one at all. So I gave this one 2 stars, I would say. It's not completely horrendous, so it wouldn't be a 1, but it's not very good. Yeah, mixed feelings for the Housemaid series. Book 1, a very enjoyable thriller if you're into that kind of thing. Book 2, not worth reading. I'm going to read book 3. I don't know, I just want to. I want to see how it is, and then there's probably going to be a book 4, so I should probably read book 3 in order to recap it. Yeah, I'll give it a go, but I don't have very high expectations. The next one that I read These aren't in any particular order, by the way. The next one I wanted to talk about was City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. This is by the author of Not Only Bones, I think it's called. This is a YA book about a city in which people have nightmares and then they turn into whatever it is they're having a nightmare about. And the main character is part of what is essentially a cult or a group of people who try and look after people who have been affected by monsters and nightmares. Like, they go and visit them and offer support and like a helping hand, someone to listen to them. I can't really remember much else about the plot. This is a very strong 3-star book. I felt similarly about her other book as well, Not Only Bones, Not Even Bones. That had like a monster market kind of situation. It felt very, very similar to this. I've just realised you can't really see it, so good. Yeah, not really my kind of thing. I don't love YA at the moment anyway, although I'm going to talk about a really good YA series in a second. You've probably seen it there already. So it does have to do something special to sort of impress me now. I just didn't really care about the characters. I didn't care about any of the relationships. I just did not care. So yeah, I gave this one 3 stars. I probably, if I was rating it like properly, I'd probably give it like 2.5. But I don't want to be too harsh because it's not like a bad book by any means. It's just, it's all right. And then I read the author's note and I feel bad thinking this because she was quite sad that the publisher for her previous series didn't pick up another book because the sales weren't that good. But that's a shame because it's a really nice, I think, Fairy Loot edition, and it's got like dinosaurs on it, and I love that. A good book cover is not a reason to rate a book highly, as we all know. I'm going to skip the Natural series for now and then talk about The One by John Mars. This one is a sci-fi kind of thriller. So what happens in this book is that people are taking DNA tests, submitting them to a company, and the company is matching you to your true match. And the whole soulmate thing is based on their DNA. And it has been working out for some people. Some people feel like an absolute spark as they meet. Other people don't even want to meet their match because they're already in a relationship. And then other people who are in a relationship end up taking the DNA test anyway. So there's a whole thing going on. I think there are 5 characters that we're following in this book, and it's very fast paced. There is also, somewhat randomly, it seems, a serial killer who has a match himself, but he's also going around and killing women. I was very intrigued by the premise of this one, and I have to say it is very thrilling, but I am not going to remember loads about this apart from the whole concept of there being like a DNA match. Kind of like The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, except thriller. So yeah, really enjoyed the concept. The serial killer storyline was interesting but not like very unique, and I didn't really feel much for any of the characters because again, it's a thriller book and I just didn't feel that connected to them, so that is a shame. But I'm very interested to read more from John Mars. I think his writing style has potential, and I believe this is a debut actually that was originally self-published, so if it's a bit like iffy and not as polished, then that's probably why. Not the self-publishing part, I just mean it being a debut and him being sort of not an established author at this point. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading, I think it's The Marriage Act and The Family Experiment, which also deal with like thrilling sci-fi concepts. So intrigued, would read more, but it's not anything amazing. So I think I'll give this one 3 stars as well, maybe 3.5. And then another 3-star book, I'm so sorry, you're gonna get so bored. This is why I'm saving the good stuff until the end. I have Starsplitter by Matthew Kirby. So what I wanted from this was a survival sci-fi horror book because, as I keep saying, that is one of my favorite genres right now. Love a good space horror, but that's not really what this was. It turns out that Starsplitter is about a girl who I believe is called Jessica. It's a YA book, so she's a teenager. Her parents are spacey scientist people and they've been off planet for a number of years now, and Jessica is quite upset with them because they've sort of left her behind with her grandparents while they go on these space missions, and she's kind of like, I don't think you really love me, you don't want to spend time with me, you know, as a teenage girl would. So now that she has been asked to go to this space station to meet her parents, who then plan on researching this planet, but in order to get there she has to go into a sort of machine which will take a print or an x-ray, sort of, not an x-ray, it's like it takes some sort of picture of her entire body, all of the particles and cells and stuff, and then transports all of that data into a 3D printer on the other side, and this 3D printer will print her, and then her old body is basically like a shell, and I guess it's disposed of or it's just left there, I'm not entirely sure. So that's a really interesting take on space travel and teleportation. I thought, I've not read anything like that before. I'm sure it's not like a completely original idea. I thought it was so cool. So the beginning was so intriguing to me. So she gets to the spaceship And then she meets someone there who is definitely not supposed to be there, and her parents are nowhere in sight. So she's kind of like, what on earth has happened? So something went a bit wrong before she got to the ship. And so it does turn into a bit of a survival thriller sort of thing in space, but not the kind of like spacey horror that I was expecting. There were definitely some horrific moments that definitely had potential. A couple of things really creeped me out, but I don't think we really learned enough about them to be like properly like scared. But still, it was a fast-paced read, and there were a couple of relationships between characters in there that I really enjoyed reading about. I liked reading about Jessica as she talked to her parents again in one way or another. And we kind of learn a bit more about their relationship and why she was feeling the way that she was feeling, and why her parents didn't have her around earlier on. So yeah, it was okay until it just ended, just very suddenly, and there was no like real resolution to anything that had been going on. It was kind of more like a do-over situation, and I just didn't really care for that. So yeah, didn't love the ending, but enjoyed the concept. I'd recommend this if you maybe don't really know what you're looking for in sci-fi, because it's got bits and pieces of a few things, and it's also YA, so really easy to read. I just wouldn't expect anything amazing from it necessarily. Okay, and now we're going to talk about some good stuff, because I feel like you guys are going to get so bored if all I talk about is the rubbish stuff. I read the entire Naturals series, and I'm so excited to have done so, because I started the first book, which is just called The Naturals, in whenever it first came out, like 2014. I read it as a part of a book club with some of my closest friends. Only one of those friends ever carried on with the series and read all of them, and that was quite a few years ago, and ever since she has been telling me that I really need to do so. So I picked all of these up because I really like these new covers. I love that they're being republished because of the Inheritance game series being so popular. They all got kind of revamped, and I love the original covers as well, but these are also really cool. So what the Naturals series is about is there's a girl called Cassie who is really, really good at kind of reading people, like reading their intentions, reading like who they are. I keep describing it, and I think everyone else describes it as well, as YA Criminal Minds, because that is the most accurate description. Cassie goes to work kind of with the FBI, and she's meant to be working on cold cases, but of course, because it's a thriller book, other things start to happen and she gets dragged into live cases. So she goes to this FBI like compound house sort of thing, and there she meets a bunch of other people who also have natural gifts. One of them is really good at reading emotions, one of them is really good at like facts, figures, sciencey, mathy stuff. Another one is basically like a human lie detector. There is a bit of a love triangle in the first book, which actually is over quite quickly, thankfully, because it's not my favorite part. Because this one was a reread, I did go back and read my old review of this book, and I ended up shipping an entirely different ship. Not that I really shipped it, because I don't really care for the romances, but I was supporting and favoriting the other side of the love triangle to what I did 10 years ago, which is really interesting because that means my tastes have flipped, and I love that. In fact, the other character who I don't like anymore just really got on my nerves, and I'm wondering why 20-year-old me even liked him. I honestly have no idea. So I really enjoyed this, and I gave it 4 stars. So then I immediately wanted to go on to Killer Instinct, which is the second one, and this one follows Cassie again on another case, and this time it's related to her love interest, Dean's father, who is a serial killer. All of these kids have really horrific backgrounds and family issues. His one is really quite bad, in that his dad is a serial killer, and his dad tried to get him involved in killing a bunch of women, which is not ideal. This one follows Dean, not just Dean, it follows Cassie and the rest of them as they try to help Dean deal with whatever it is his father is up to. His father is in prison, but there's stuff going on relating to his father's cases. So yeah, this one was really good as well. I would say this one's on par with the first book. The story is memorable, it's really creepy, the characters do some really stupid stuff, but it's all in good fun, well, mostly. So I gave this one 4 stars as well. And then there is Allin, which is set in Vegas. This is the third book. This one was really interesting. It felt a little bit different to the first 2 books in that this one and the 4th book felt more of a duology, like a continuation on from each other, whereas the first 2 were very much like standalone YA thrillers in the same series. But this felt like part of a longer Criminal Minds episode, I guess, or the start of one. So it's set in Vegas, and I don't really know how much detail to go into because it could be spoilery, so I'm just not going to say too much. You do learn a little bit more about all of the other characters. You meet more side characters and family members for the others who, like I said, are going through some family stuff or have been through some family stuff. I think this one is the one where I started to really stan one of the characters. Can't remember her name, so I'm not that good of a stan, to be honest. But yeah, really liked her. Let me see if I can find her name. It begins with L. Can't remember if it's like Lydia or Lila. But this one is where I really started to feel for her. Not that I didn't like her in the other books. Leah is her name. This one is one where I absolutely loved her. And then I read the 4th book, which took a turn. It's called Bad Blood, by the way. I feel like I tend to be very picky with my series finales in that I want them to be absolutely epic. If I've been building up to something for like thousands of pages, they'd better be really freaking good. But this one, it was okay. I've given this one like 3.5 stars, even though this series is definitely 4 stars overall. It went a bit wild. This one is the one where you really start to see the overarching plot come together, and all of the things that have been hinted at throughout the series, or haven't been hinted at throughout, but like came up in the 3rd book. Like I said, this is like a continuation episode from the 3rd one. This is where it all sort of accumulates, and then it gets a bit much. It's all very convenient. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to talk much more about it, but it wasn't the sort of epic ending that I was wanting from this, to be honest. But it was still really good, and I really like the characters, and I did cry a bit at the end because I was super emotional. I'm really attached to them at this point, so yeah, love them so much. Can't believe I am so attached to this group of teenagers. I just want them to do well. Overall, The Naturals was a really fun read, and I don't think it put me into a reading slump. Nothing really lived up to it throughout the entire month after that, and it's definitely a series that I'm going to keep on my shelf and I want to reread because it was so much fun, and the characters were just absolutely lovely. And Leah and Sloane in particular, like I like Cassie as well. Dean's all right, and then Michael, cannot stand him, but the others are great. I also read the little novella at the back here. I can't remember what it's called. It's like 12 or something, and that was just okay. That follows them when they're a bit older, and I'm not really sure what the point of it was, but I guess it's showing like how the characters have grown and what they're up to now. And I don't really love short stories anyway, so I gave that one 3 stars. I probably would have given it less if I wasn't so attached to the characters, because obviously I need to be attached to characters in order to care about short stories. So that's how that one went. I'm really glad that I finally continued with and finished the series. Can't believe it took me so long, and I wish I had read them sooner, but here we are, I've done that now. And then we've just got 2 more books to go. The first one being Raiders of the Lost Heart. This is a romance book. It's an archaeology based romance book. The main character, whose name is, I can't remember, Corrie. She is an archaeologist, a professor at a university, and she's not like the most respected because obviously the men get all the attention, but she is known to go on really cool adventures. So she has chosen to go on an archaeological dig to find someone who, or the remains of someone who she thinks is one of her ancestors down in Mexico. The only thing is, she has been hired onto this dig by her rival archaeologist, whose name, again, I can't remember, Ford Matthews. And yes, he is named after Harrison Ford because of Indiana Jones. I found this entertaining. I read it in just a few hours when it was really sunny outside. It's a very good summer book. I don't really have loads to say about it. It wasn't like massively exciting. I didn't really care about the sex scenes because I just tend to not, but I enjoyed like the jungle adventure sort of vibe, the Indiana Jones Tomb Raider sort of stuff that was going on. That was fun. Not that she was raiding any tombs, she's a very respectful archaeologist, but I'd recommend it if you're into that kind of thing, if you want a cute rom-com set in the Mexican jungle. And then finally, the last book that I read in June was Powerless, and I hated it. Okay, hate is a really strong word. Let me tell you what it's about first, and then we'll get into my hateful feelings. This follows a girl called Payden, who is living on the streets. Her father was a healer, like a magical healer, but he is dead. She is living on the streets with her best friend, Adina. And then one day she saves the prince, who also has powers, from some people who are trying to mug him. And then people witness this and they're like, oh my God, you would be so good in these trials that are happening. The crown or royal family put on trials every so often. I don't know how often it is because the world building isn't very clear. I feel like I should cut this. Hold on. Oh yeah, I've seen people do this. This is good. So she has to take part in these trials, which are basically like the Hunger Games meets the Goblet of Fire trials. Can't remember what they're called. Triwizard Tournament. The prince is also taking part. His name is Kai. So she has to go and live at the palace while she preps for these trials. So that's kind of like Throne of Glass. If what you're getting from this is that it's not a very unique story, it seems to take a lot from other books, you would be correct. This is like one of the least original stories I have ever read. I don't understand how this book is so popular. I guess if you're new to fantasy, particularly YA fantasy, it could be like your kind of thing. Like, it's not poorly written in that like it's okay, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's the most generic plot. My camera cut out and I don't know where I got to, but what I was saying was this book is also a bit like Red Queen, which is a series that I read years ago because of the like silver and red blood. So it does take a lot from other series. I completely agree. And it's definitely not the most unique plot. So yeah, really not my kind of thing. And then the ending was just like ridiculous. I didn't really care about any of the characters. It just all felt very surface level. There's also a love triangle romance in here, a lot like Red Queen, where both princes really like her and she takes advantage of that, but she clearly favors one prince in particular. There was a female character in here who was basically just there to like die. I'm not gonna say who it was, but to like set things in motion and provide a bit of emotional turmoil for the main character, and I didn't really love that either. So yeah, not a fan of this book. I'm going to give it 2 stars. It's not quite bad enough for a 1 star, but it is bad enough to make me question why TikTok is so obsessed with it. And I'm guessing it's because the people who are like newer on TikTok, who haven't been around the book community for very long, or haven't been reading for very long, they've not read these kinds of books before, whereas I have. And I've read so many of them, and I just wish it was a bit more unique. So yeah, that's Powerless. I think I've posted a recap on Recaptains now, so I'm going to unhaul this. I really can't be bothered to keep it on my shelf, and I won't be reading the sequel. Absolutely not. I'm really disappointed because I thought I might at least enjoy it, but I didn't. It was a very fast read, but it wasn't a very enjoyable fast read. So yeah, disappointing. And with that, that's the end of my June wrap up. I hope you enjoyed my rambling. I don't really know what I was just talking about for the last 45 minutes. I haven't really done much of this diamond painting. I'll show you what it looks like in a second. It really is taking me ages, but maybe I'll film another video while I'm working on this. Thank you for watching, and let me know what your favourite book of June was in the comments down below, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye. Before I go, this is the amount of diamond painting I have done, if it would focus. I've done these lines here, so about half of the bottom 4 rows, and I've still got all of this to do. So I'm going to need to do way more videos while doing diamond painting. So I'll see you later.